Webit Virtual special event series, co-hosted by AT&T.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of Webit Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
And my co-host, I would like to kindly welcome Mr. Karim Lesina. Karim, welcome to Webit Virtual Studio. How are you, my dear friend? Just make sure that you're unmuted and...
You see, we start.
That's the power of technology now.
Thanks a lot for that, Plamen, and thanks for having me here. It's a great event.
Now let's do a small. Let's uncover the secret here. You are physically in. Can we say?
Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C. And I'm physically somewhere in Europe. But thanks to the technologies and the powerful platform of the virtual show, we managed to be all together now, side by side, in this virtual studio of Webit Special Series. And I would like to start by saying thank you for joining us as AT&T in this special Webit series on high-level policy talks, making sure that the impact that both the Webit global community and AT&T have is multiplied, and hopefully we support the achievement of SDGs by 2030 and do an impact discussions. So thank you so much, Karim.
Now, thanks to you, Plamen, and I know it's a little off script and you don't like that, but I want to thank you and the whole team of Webit, because you guys in the last 6 months have been doing something impressive. And you have been showing us and connecting us, even if we cannot meet together. Just the fact that we are able to do this event together, while I'm in DC and you are somewhere in Europe, I know where, but it's Sofia, let's say like this. But it's fantastic, and really your team and you have been magicians, connecting and letting all of us being able to discuss our core issues. So let's start.
Thank you so much, Karim. Thank you for your generosity. And I look forward to have real great discussion, making the real use of technology, because the technology itself is not important. What really matters are the people. And I believe that both of us sharing the same values, and of course, our fantastic guest today, it's all about people. So let's make sure we harness the technology for the better, desirable future of us, the humankind. I'm grateful for your support in this endeavor. And without further ado, I would like to, if with your permission, to introduce our first guest here. Look who he is.
Mr. Houlin Zhao is the Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union. ITU is the specialized United Nations agency for ICT services and technologies promotion, collaboration, and standardization. Mr. Zhao is committed to further streamlining ITU's efficiency, to strengthening its membership base through greater involvement of the academic community and of small and medium-sized enterprises, and to broadening multi-stakeholder participation in the Union's work.
And Mr. Zhao, such a pleasure to welcome you to our virtual studio.
Yeah, thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you. Where are you now?
I'm at home in Geneva. We are teleworking due to this unfortunate situation, COVID-19 pandemic.
Of course, and that's the reason we are having this discussion today, to discuss how this post-pandemic world will look like and how we will be supporting together with all this global innovation ecosystem of Webit and the fantastic opportunities, the infrastructures that you represent, and of course, Karim with AT&T, in order to support the next steps. But I would like first to welcome you warmly to our virtual studio and to give the floor to my co-host to move ahead with the discussion, because we have tons of questions to ask you.
Thank
So,
you. Yeah, pleasure.
Houlin, it's really a pleasure to have you here, and let's start. You know, we are looking at COVID-19 and the impact it has on our sector, but in general on the society. And we know that we are looking at the SDGs in 2030 as the objective in front of us. So what can we really learn fastly of the last 6 months, you know, and where the ITU has been helping us to bridge and to get to those SDGs. Obviously, remember, we need to go fast. This is an interactive discussion. Plamen is going to hit our hands if we don't go fast. So let's go on an interaction. But what do you want to kickstart off with us on focusing on the last 6 months and the great work the ITU has been doing there?
Yeah, thank you very much, my friend Karim. I think that we all talked about information society. We are all talking about digital society. We talked about this for almost a decade long, or even longer. But people are not really prepared to come to this kind of a society immediately. And with this COVID-19, that we are unfortunately forced to change our living style and working style, and then most of us are forced to stay at home and try to keep our service continuing and keep our society continuing, keep our economy continuing. There is no other way, but we have to use ICT to support our life, to support our activities. Now, thanks to the wonderful achievement over last decade, everywhere, not only in the developed countries, but also developing countries, in poor countries, least developing countries, we see the infrastructure of ICT deployed and developed. And thanks to this kind of achievement that people now can still work together to fight against the COVID-19. But with this kind of situation, we also noted that apparently there's a digital divide. For example, in March, April, all school children stay at home and then use the e-courses and seems to be working. But then, I heard from my friend from Africa, there's no such kind of things in the African continent. They can use the broadband connection to give courses over, the network to their children at home. What they did, they have to do something. They use television to broadcasting the teaching programs and to their children. So you see the difference between those who have broadband connectivity and for those who do not have that one. So that is the division between broadband and connectivity. Now, Karim, I had issued a circular from ITU to invite our members, member states and sector members, our partners to work together to speed up our efforts to promote ICT. Why? Because last September at our telecom 2019 in Budapest, I was challenged by public in the press conference, asking me, Secretary General, you talked about not leave anyone behind, and you talked to the development so far, and you informed us that by September last year, we had about 54% of people connected online, but you still have 46% not connected online. And you talked not to leave anybody behind. With this, can you tell me when you can see everybody be connected? I cannot answer that question. Then, they asked, what about, SDGs? SDGs 2030, we should have SDG achieved. Can we tell people that by 2030, we have everybody connected? To be honest with you, at that moment, I said, no, may not be that kind of optimistic. That could be a challenge. But the same question raised by Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, at the United Nations Digital Cooperation Summit in June, and he said that he would like to see everybody be connected by 2030. Now we have 46% not connected yet. And then over the last 2 years, we noted that the improvement of the connectivity is slowing down. And even we keep 2% per year, you still have to wait for another 20 years, 23 years to go. And then by 2030, you connect everybody. That is the challenge. Not forget, we still doing our best to upgrade our services. Now we are talking about the 4G, 5G. And we just talked a little bit that we have to be realistic. When we switch on, we have to get some delay. And with this time delay, 5G will help us to reduce this time delay, right? So we have to provide updated. I know that you want me to stop it. Let me stop.
Yeah, and I know it's not that I want to stop. I think you're raising a great point, and I'm going to look at with Plamen on this because we're going to continue to talk about 4G and 5G. But I think what you have been raising that is important is that, like a year ago, like 6 months before the world crisis, you were preaching sometimes some things that people were not even believing was so necessary. And a year later, we see it like totally essential because we understand where we are. So Plamen, you want to continue on that one? Because I think that raises a really good point on this issue.
Well, Karim, I'm definitely there with you. And I believe that if we're talking about achieving the SDGs by 2030, there is one very clear opportunity, and that's it, called technology. Yes, technology brought us where we are, but definitely it is technology that could help us hopefully achieve the SDGs by 2030. And definitely the future of digital economy is hugely linked to this achievement. So prosperous digital economies will unlock the potential of the next billion users to the internet and push for the innovation uplift and higher and better lives, and hopefully support us in inclusion and all other important 17 goals that we have. So my question for Mr. Zhao is, how do you see the next years, 10 years from that perspective? Could regulations create unintended consequences? If so, there is a mechanism in place to solve those rapidly. Could you give us concrete example of how users could be affected?
Yeah, I think that, yes, we have challenge. And 10 years, we have 10 years of action. And 10 years seems to be not that short. But 10 years, if I just give you a figure, if we keep the improvement 2% per year, you need 23 years at least, you know, that. And don't forget that those people not connected online yet are those people in the poor area, not much profit for investors. So that how can we really bring them online? So that is the real challenge. So I'm very pleased this year. I was invited by many virtual meetings. For example, G20, Minister of Chaos, their meeting invited ITU to go. They like to have digital system to improve their efficiency. And I was invited by G20 financial ministers. I told them that, gentlemen, I think that you are very important for us because how can we do the business? And according to some studies that you mentioned, to connect the next billion people online, and someone said that with that kind of figure, you need $450 billion to do that job. And where you ask World Bank, they will tell you they have no such money. So, and also up to now, the market is mainly invested by private sector, more than 90%. And our public authority sometimes is a misperception that this business is a profit-making business. They always are self-sustainable. You don't need to worry. They will make a profit always. I told them, gentlemen, it's not the case like that. Huh? And that the competition among the industry is very tough. And then to bring that ICT beneficial to remote area, you need more efforts to create a good environment to attract the private investment. And you also have to do something yourself. And in the past, the financial minister gave money to each ministry, and each ministry uses their money to improve their efficiency. And until nowadays, they cannot do anything for the efficiency without ICT. So each minister uses the budget to do the business alone. And this is not the best way for them to invest in ICT. So I said, we have to learn the lessons. For example, ICT minister also invited together with me to the health ministry meetings. That is great. That they already talk together. That this kind of things. But anyhow, for education, for example, you counter on ICT, and then you use ICT to improve. Then how can you use the limited resources of investment? That is, I'm very pleased to share with you that recently we work with UNECE to launch a new project of GIGA. And this GIGA project is supposed to connect the schools by internet. And then, what happened? 2005, we had our wishes process. We make a goal to connect every school by 2015. today still not every school connected. And still we need this kind of project to work with UNICEF to mobilize the industry everywhere to work together to improve the connectivity of the schools only. So I can tell you, when I was in Tonga, the Pacific Island country 3 years ago, and the school participated by the Prime Minister, by a Deputy Prime Minister, none of these schools have internet connectivity. But they have some kind of, a computer course, and there's no computer in the lab. So this is a real challenge for us. I think that I'm very pleased to be invited by this kind of meetings, G20, not only ICT ministers, but financial ministers, health ministers. I think that we have to encourage our public authority to pay attention to this kind of environment to attract investment. I also encourage industry to go further to do this business. ITU, as you noted, that to connect the remote area, we need a satellite so that we give spectrum to satellite. And to have good services, we need a 5G. We give spectrum to 5G. So we try to do our best to make a best use of limited spectrum, but to make a best interest for everybody to enjoy new technologies. And here, I think that, again, the industry is absolutely key to our success. So we like to, so that is my message to those G20 meeting, BRICS meeting, United Nations meeting, summit. I said that my dear friends, industry like to do more, but please help us to create a good environment. Please also change your working method, change your strategic mind, that not put this to the individual ministry to do the business alone, a silo development. You have to come together to look at this issue, and then.
And that I think is core in the continuance of the discussion. So, Plamen, I think we should move the presentation of the second guest because it's really getting everybody together that will help us to have all our participants here to enjoy.
Yeah, okay,
absolutely. I think that it's all about building a dialogue and using technology to fostering that dialogue. So I can't agree more with you. I just wanted to share that we have almost 8,000 people with us now. No pressure. That's why it's important to keep short but very powerful messages, so we can really manage to bring this amazing people from all around the world into action. And it's all about your leadership, dear guests in the studio. Let me announce our next guest now. And Mr. Zhao, please stay with us.
Ms. Olga Algayerova is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. She took office on June 1st, 2017. Ms. Algayerova brings to the position a combination of leadership and diplomatic skills with deep knowledge of the region with its challenges and opportunities, and a strong focus on building and nurturing partnerships among key stakeholders with the United Nations.
Hello, such a pleasure to welcome you here, Ms. Olga Algayerova. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for welcoming me.
It is our pleasure to have you virtually with us. And Karim is going to question you because it's important for all of us to hear this leadership and of course, your visionary leadership, how you see it next. Your main focus, of course, is Europe. But furthermore, we are discussing here the overall achievement of SDGs by 2030 and the post-pandemic world and how we can empower a positive change. Karim?
I think you're doing the right point, Plamen. I think where we are looking is your opinion and your view on what Houlin just told us, but also what are your main priorities? You're representing a specific region. Houlin obviously had the World Organization in mind, but what are your main priorities in order to help achieve the SDGs by 2030?
Well, first, to clarify, you mentioned that we have in our agenda Europe, but it's indeed 56 member states, not just in Europe, but we have Caucasus, Central Asia, even North America, and so 56 member states in this big region. We call it UNECE because we are United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, but it is much bigger. So then you mentioned Agenda 2030 or SDGs, and Houlin already mentioned we are just starting the last decade of Agenda 2030. So it's important for all of us, namely member states, because these are who implements SDGs and their targets. But we need to accelerate in this last decade because we just recently during the General Assembly, we made a map where we are today, status quo. And so my region is still quite well advanced, but still we are lagging behind many targets of those SDGs. So this is important, and Agenda 2030 is more important than ever. And then the topic of this meeting is post-COVID agenda. So I am not sure whether we are post-COVID already, because what we started to do in our Economic Commission immediately when the pandemic started in mid-March, we started immediately to work with all 56 member states and to see what is it we can do to help to ease the situation. And for us, the first was the connectivity, because as we all know, the borders were closed and the trucks were standing on the border crossings and they cannot pass through. Many times they were live animals in those trucks. So we immediately reacted and we created so-called observatories that helped to member states. And then the member states have seen the lack of essential goods in their countries and the prices of food and medicines were raising up. So it was very important to keep this connectivity. So for the future, because we always need to see the emergency situation, the midterm, the long term. So in the long term, if you're asking me what our priorities are, so very close to my heart is circular economy. As we all know, we have finite resources in our planet. So unless we incorporate circularity concerns into all phases of design, use, production, reuse, recycling, disposal, we will not reach the sustainable future that we want. And this is why we focus very strongly on circular economy. Indeed, in April next year, we have our commission session that we have each 2 years. And the topic agreed by all our member states is promoting circular economy and sustainable management of natural resources in UNECE region. So this is SDG 12, namely, if you want sustainable consumption and production. And of course, digitalization is an important element in advancing circular economy. But I would love to mention our UN Center for Trade Facilitation and Electronic Business, in short, UNCFACT. So, and it develops recommendations, standards used by government, because we are typical standard and norm setting body and typical intergovernmental body. So, so we develop recommendations, norms and standards used by governments and companies as well as private sector worldwide. So several of its, because we speak about digitalization, so its e-business standards are particularly relevant in the COVID-19 times. And they also help to decrease physical contacts at customs by digitizing procedures, for example. So for the past few years, CFACT has examined how blockchain and other advanced technologies, such as Internet of Things, can be harnessed towards the SDGs. Blockchains with their distributed ledger technology offers really significant possibilities for increasing the reliability and security of trade transactions.
I would like to ask you here, Ms. Algayerova, Olga, we are both with origins from Eastern Europe, and I'm very proud of what you're doing, really. That's why we were so happy that you've joined us with this virtual event. But talking about circular economy and talking about regions where the economy does not host these huge mastodons, these huge companies, we all work to foster the growth of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And Webit is one of these examples. We're running the world's biggest startup challenge, over were 5,000 startups competing for $1 million award, but beyond all, being connected to entrepreneurs, to companies, and to investors. This is a question, though. What do you see as an opportunity for entrepreneurs who would like to work for achieving SDGs through sustainability, building sustainable development solutions, being themselves sustainable development organizations? How do you see, what kind of support do you see for such startups and founders?
If you mean through Agenda 2030, look, first of all, I still think that not so many companies or private sector entities are familiar with all 17 SDGs and their targets. They don't understand it. So first of all, I think it's education. So they need to learn, because what I truly believe is that the private sector can achieve their bottom lines or profits, if we want, also if they think about sustainability, if sometimes we call it corporate social responsibility. Okay, so that if they don't think just about the profits, of course it's the final goal, but I believe we can marry it together. We can merge it, the sustainability with profits, so with the raison d'être, I would tell, reason of being of those private sector with Agenda 2030. And it is about environmental sustainability, energy sustainability, social, human rights sustainability. So everything in there. And I believe it really fits together. And more we see more private sector that comes to us and they want to think in a sustainable way for the future. And this is important because we cannot start business as usual. We cannot back in the same way. We need to think in the different way. And also the business offers many opportunities. We should take this really bad situation as an opportunity also for the business sector.
I think you're speaking straight to my heart here, because you're talking about the importance of public and private to work together in order to achieve these essential goals. And I think you're totally right. And Plamen, I think we should get our net guests on board, because this is really going to help us moving forward the discussions, remembering that we are all an ecosystem, and in the ecosystem, everybody has a role to play.
Thank you so much, Karim. Let me introduce our next guest.
Göran Marby is the CEO and president of ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. The company is overseeing the distribution of Internet addresses, and according to the domain name system, often referred to as the phone book of the Internet. Mr. Marby brings over 20 years of experience as a senior executive in the Internet and technology sector, as well as his leadership as Director General at the independent regulatory body Swedish Post and Telecom Authority.
Hello, Mr. Marby. How are you? Thank you for joining.
Hi, good to be here.
Great to be with us. Karim, I've been hosting in this studio the Moron Serve, Dr. Serve, who is one of the fathers of Internet. And we were joking, without Internet, we would have been completely lost during this pandemic. It would have been worse than whatever it is anyway. It's terrible. But what would have been without the ICANN?
It's funny. It's funny that you say that, because in a recent speech, and Göran, I'm a huge fan of Göran, and in a recent speech, what he said is that the internet, it's you. It grows when you connect. And this is sometimes something we have a tendency to forget, Can I ask you more about this, Göran? Because I think everything about the internet and the digital transformation is what is going to bring us to achieve those SDGs. And I will remember that speech you made that year at the WSIS. That was really, really important on trying to make people understand that internet is made of all of us.
Well, thank you, Karim, and thank you for hosting me here. It's a real pleasure, even if it's early in the morning here in Los Angeles.
Thank you for waking up so early for us in the global community.
I mean, I do anything for the internet. But let's take a step, and thank you for reminding me of a speech I gave several years ago, Karim. I have to remember the context of that speech. But let's do something simple thing. Let's define what the internet actually is, because you use the word internet for so many different things. And from ICANN, and a little bit to explain the ICANN's role in this, what we call the internet is a single, interoperable network of networks that connects over 3.5 billion people around the world. And if you think about it for a second, the fact that you have representatives of so many different telecom operators, infrastructures, you talked about satellite, mobile, fixed, fiber, ADSL, and all of them are using the same underlying principle for connection. The internet is not a natural resource. It's a base of rules that make that happen. The internet is not the platforms, and with no disrespect, when you go into a social media platform, anything, you actually do leave the internet. The internet, as we define it, is this fantastic opportunity for people to connect everywhere in the world on any type of device. So what I meant with that, Karim, was very simple. The fact that, when you go online, if the way you measure the internet just got bigger. When you disconnect from the internet, what happens is that the internet gets smaller because you are, with your device, a part of the internet. And this was a couple of years ago, because when in my previous job, when we did studies about the internet, and we saw that people in the beginning of a country or a region coming onto it, people connected to the internet, and then people disconnected to the internet. Do you remember those times? It was like, hey, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But what happens now, one of the big differences we see around the world is that people are always connected on several devices at the same time. You never really disconnect. So just to explain what ICANN does in all of this. So what we do is it's a task of coordinating everything you call domain names or IP addresses, which is the sort of basic language for computers to talk to each other. And I heard that you have Wint here who actually designed the IP protocol that connects all of those things. And so ICANN's task in all of this is to make sure that every time you go online, you get an IP address and you can search for a domain name. So actually, every time you go online, you hit something that originates from us. Also, important caveat, we have nothing to do with content. We have nothing to do what you do with your internet. It's all up to you. We are a non-for-profit organization, and we have no commercial interest in it as well. So I hope that answers to your first question, correct?
I think you raised a great point, and some of us sometimes don't realize how many layers there is in order to get to this great event that we are doing. So this is for me the most interesting one. And if I look at it about inclusiveness, about digital transformation, about how, like Plamen was saying before, how we can bring this to even more people, can we ask you, Plamen, and I, what ICANN can help in order to achieve that, the inclusiveness and the possibility to connect the unconnected? I think this crisis has proved that this is essential. I'm able to connect with my mother who lives in Tunisia, and my kids are calling her all the time. How do we get there, to connect that part that today is still not there?
Absolutely.
I think that one of the underlying things, sometimes is to not forget we're not done. I mean, we on one side, we have 3.5 to 4 billion internet users around the world, and we sort of think, oh yeah, we're done. But like Zhao said, we're not done yet. And internet is a very interesting sort of thing. I mean, it is what we're doing right now is, we break the rules, we come up with new rules all the time because internet has changed everything. I mean, for me personally, one of the most important things with internet is not what often we talk about, is like the economic good things with this, that you can make money on it, it's production. It's actually the fact that by having people on one single operational network, you can take away one of the biggest disadvantages that exist, and that is access to information to the poor. Because over time, rich people has been the ones who's been able to get information, poor people has not. By getting people online, what happens is that they get the same access to information. That leads for me to innovation. That leads to me something magical happens. So inside ICANN, one of the things we're trying to do is to make internet more accessible. So it's not unfair to say what the internet actually started. It started in the US. It started as a research project, and many of the things that it started with was based on what we call Latin script or English. So basically, you read from the left and you go to the right, and you have something called a dot. So up till now, the internet users of the world are the elite. In many ways, they live in cities, they have access to technology, they have access to money to pay for the internet access, etc., etc. So the next billion users will be harder. And people are smart. They want to see the benefit of paying for something like the internet before they actually start doing it. And they also want to be able to understand it. So one of the big things we are trying to do from ICANN side is actually to do it more internationalized. Because the interesting thing with internet, it's a global thing. We always talk about the global things, and you mentioned, Karim, talking to your kids, talking to your mother, etc., etc. But it's also very local, because if you look at the internet traffic, and you know this better than most, Karim, working for AT&T, is that a lot of the traffic actually is local. You want to see what happens in your local municipality. You speak to your local bank. You want to check your local movies when we go out, or your local restaurants. And many of the friends you're communicating with are actually quite local. So this local and global at the same time is the next challenge for all of us. So what we're doing, and we're spending a lot of investment, a lot of people is working on around the world, is to create an internet that is actually respecting people's knowledge about languages. So people could go online using their own scripts, their own language, their own keyboards, not reading from left to right, not even the understanding of a dot. Because many of the people we're also looking at has no interest of learning English or what we call Latin scripts. They want to use it on a local basis. So that's to answer your question. One of the things we're really trying to do now, or actually doing, we have many local scripts around the world, is to make sure that people can take on internet the way on their own terms, so to speak. The other thing, and here I'm sort of challenging also you, Karim, is the fact that, but this also goes into that web browsers, that machinery around the internet also accepts scripts written in different language in written ways. So when you do a search engine, when you go into a host service or anything, you can write in your own keyboard, and those machines are actually using those new scripts. And we call that universal acceptance, and it's important when we have a lot of contacts with manufacturers, software engineering houses, and everybody else. So they accept those scripts, because that's going to be very important to get those next billion users. So in a way, there's a lot of technology in this, and there's a lot of steps that we have to take forward to make this happen. But I think that the interest right now is huge, because we're getting more and more interest from many countries around the world.
That's super interesting.
Sorry.
Go, Plamen.
I just wanted to say that there are like tons of questions coming, and our team has selected like 13 already to be asked. Most probably it will not happen, but still, let's try to ask a few of those, if you don't mind, Karim. But go ahead.
Plamen, all yours.
Okay, just a quick one, and maybe we can ask this question. It comes from Henry, Brooklyn, US. What are the most important innovations that will support us in achieving SDGs? I think this could be a question to everyone, but maybe we can ask it to the guest now.
Why don't we get our fourth guest in the table? I think you will be a great one also to start with such a question with his incredible profile.
Sounds perfect. And let's have our last guest now in the studio, and then jump into a common discussion. Here is our last guest.
Victor Manuel Muñoz Rodriguez is the Presidential Advisor for Economic Matters and Digital Transformation for the Presidency of Colombia. He has more than 17 years of professional experience in digital transformation, entrepreneurship, and knowledge in technology and service companies in multiple countries. He was the president for Latin America of the multinational Comdata Group and has been an active member of the boards of directors of the Digital Industry Chamber for ANDI and feet soft.
Senor Rodriguez, welcome.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
It is our pleasure having you with us, and I'm sure that Karim will be here, the better host for you, because I know how actively AT&T are involved in supporting the growth of the economies and particularly the technological infrastructure in South America. Karim?
Thanks a lot, Plamen. And Victor, thanks for joining us. You work for a government that has been incredible on everything around technology and orange economy, and I think your president is really unbelievable on this. And you are the digital czar. So when we think to this and to the question that Plamen just gave us, what do you see as the priorities that we should focus on in order to answer specifically to those questions on how to promote digital entrepreneurship, to promote more people getting into our digital economy?
Okay, at this moment in the country, we have been doing a lot of things. The first is that connectivity also is important for us. At this moment, we have a 53% of the country with broadband, and we will expect to have around 70% until 2022. And that is the first thing. The second thing is that we have been working a lot in the ecosystem, because it's important to have talent, to have access to in the ecosystem, to work with the private sector, with the public sector. We have in the country different centers that we promote the ecosystem, that we promote the training in digital skills, that we help the students, that we help the entrepreneurs in how they can have access to the financial components, and that is the focus that we have in the country. We have a lot of challenge, but we have been working a lot in digital transformation. At this moment, we have been working a lot in telehealth, in fintech, also we have been working in a concept that we named that we use is orange economy. And orange economy is that we promote everything that is related with cultural and with technological components. That is important because that is opportunity that we have in South America, basically here in Colombia, and that is part of our strategy. We have in Colombia a digital transformation strategy that has 7 components, that is talent, digital economy, digital government, innovation, co-creation, connectivity, and cybersecurity. And that is the thing that we are doing with the have been working, because we know that the digital economy is opportunity that we have in the country to have a positive growth more after the pandemic.
I think this is a great point. And can I ask you also, compared to how to bring the unconnected, that has been also an issue Göran has been sharing a lot with us now. And then I think I will give the floor to Plamen, so he goes with all the questions from our participants and from all the people that are viewing, because we have a lot of those.
Okay, in terms of the connectivity, I would like to mention that in the country, we have at this moment different plans. The last year we did a spectrum allocation in 790, 100, and 2500 megahertz. And now we will have a strong plan to deploy 4G in some regions that we don't have. And we at this moment with the roadmap to have 5G in the spectrum process, maybe in 2023. And we have been working a lot in social programs to give internet access for consumers and basically for vulnerable areas. We have a lot of plans that at this moment introduce more than 5 million connections, free connections in households and mobile device for people that are in the more vulnerable areas in Colombia, and that is the opportunity that they have to have access to the training, to the programs, to the ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you so much, Karim. Now, if you don't mind, and I hope you don't mind, because that's the whole idea about discussion. Let's really bring all our fantastic guests together with us now in the studio and start answering the questions which are piling up here. Everyone, I would like to ask you here kindly to jump into answering the questions. I'm not going to invite particular person to join, but there are a number of very important questions. We have questions from Paris through Sydney and US, Europe, parts of Asia. Let me start with a question from Paris is here. Julie. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for the event today. How users will change their behavior and preferences in the future? Can we connect this to policies which will be guiding the user behavior into a more sustainable lifestyles and definitely achieving the SDGs? It's never been so quiet in the studio.
No,
Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah.
Go, Göran. Okay, Göran,
no,
go.
I was just thinking, I'm sorry to say that one of the unique things with the internet itself is there was no marketing director behind it who came up with the idea. There was no telco who sort of thought that this was a great idea, let's go out and sell it. One of the amazing things with internet and technology is it was really the users. Through an actually, if you spoke to Wint and you speak to other people who was there in the beginning, like Steve Crocker and the other ones, they would tell you what happened was that they went to universities, talked to their friends, and suddenly people just got online. I was 30 years old, that's how old I am, before I actually used a mobile phone to send an SMS, a text message. I lived my life happily without the internet. And then suddenly the world woke up and realized, oh, internet, that's a really big thing. And so the reasons I'm reminding you all of this is that the fantastic thing is that with internet, because of the fact that you connected, it's very much the users who decides how to use it. And legislators and others are often behind. For instance, now we see, for good reasons, legislators around the world are looking at internet, and often they talk about the bad things of it. It's fake news, it's fake media, it's fake info, which is an important discussion, or privacy. And we see a lot of legislators now trying to come to terms how to protect their own citizens, which I think is important. ICANN has no stake in that conversation at all. But it really just shows that it was the users who decided on this. And I think they are going to make collectively a lot of decisions going forward as well, regardless of policy. It is a really fantastic moment of people coming together and using one network.
Thank you so much. Ms. Algayerova?
If we speak about the practical solutions, just one example. Worldwide, it is estimated that approximately 1.6 billion of tons of food is going waste, okay? And on the other hand, 870 million people worldwide are hungry. So what we designed here at UNECE is a blockchain supported marketplace for this waste of food. So that the primary objective with doing that is to distribute this currently unavailable food waste in alternative food chains. And that's my example of practical solution.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Olga. Mr. Zhao?
Yeah, I want to say that user behavior is changing with the technology development. Of course, today people like to use mobile phone more often than before, and they want to have mobile phone to be the only tool, to help them to move around, to do every business, that way. So that is, I think that is a natural development of our human beings. But on the other hand, you also see that more and more people worried about security issues, privacy issues, that this kind of use could cause a lot of concerns. So that will be another issue. And then COVID-19 give us again another observation that people stay at home. And when they stay at home, like today, I first use my laptop to connect myself with you. And then when I failed with my first try, and you asked me to use my mobile phone, then mobile phone is not my first choice. So these kind of things could be changed, from time to time, and with technology's development. And of course, this is only good question for those who have a lot of choices of new technology terminals and services and applications. And for those who are still using 2G, we still have a customer use 2G. Huh? And also, and I noted that because I checked your background information and you try to talk about the Latin America, Caribbean regions, and I did some study and the research, and I found that Latin America region and Caribbean regions, generally speaking, their penetrations, mobile phones, fixed line and broadband is more, normally it's a little bit higher than the global average. And to some areas, you have a much higher. But then I also noted one particular point that the home computers, that in 2015, when you talked about the internet connectivity, let's talk about 40%, 50%. At that moment, more or less, every home has one computer. Then later on, you have mobile phones more, and then that you have a mobile broadband connectivity at home, so you don't need a computer, so you don't have a computer that many as smartphones. So that mobile phone, mobile broadband connection is higher than the old average because you have more smartphone at home. While now with the COVID-19, you found that the computer is also quite important. I don't know whether the users will try to also adapt themselves with new technologies, so that because nowadays that the home connection, home gateway is more important for our business, for our people. People may also think about this one. So that I think that a lot of changes with the technology changes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zhao. I have a question. I think that it's easier to manage within a country rather than multi-stakeholders and multi-countries. So in this respect, Mr. Rodriguez, Victor, there is this question which comes from, I think, US, Sydney. Can you tell us what steps need to be taken in order to combine digital transformation with a more resilient and sustainable lifestyle? Where is Colombia in this path?
Okay. At this moment, we have been working a lot in a digital transformation policy. After COVID, we have a plan for the economic recovery, and is that we will invest in the next 18 months $1 billion in terms of 17 specific projects related with healthcare sector, related with justice, related with interoperability, because it's important to have access of the public information in terms of how we can give more benefits for citizens and give more easy process for citizens. And at this moment, we have been working so hard. We know that we have a challenge, and we have focusing to invest in 17 big projects in the next 18 months, but also we have been working more than 200 projects in the country, in justice, in health, in education, in interoperability, in relation between government and citizens. And we have been doing this with private sector, with the civil society, because we know that this is a co-creation process, that we have the opportunity to change the country, but we need to do this with the collaboration of the private and with the private sector and civil society. And another thing that is important for us is that moment of challenge is a moment of the opportunities. We have the opportunity to will be more stronger and to will be more digitalized size after the COVID.
Thank you so much. Karim, I think this kind of question for you, but at the same time with Mr. Zhao, it is a question about how in these times that we are living with the pandemic, are operators preparing to deliver the 5G network and most probably and beyond? It's anonymous, but I think the question is credible and matters.
No, I think, look, it was, I was going to ask a similar question to our panelists, and I think the reality here is that we have seen how networks are essential in every day. We are connecting And I think people are recognizing even more, since they're not able to do face-to-face meeting or traveling, how much network are essential in our life, not only for these great events that you are organizing, Plamen, and that we are all looking at all the time, but also in general, because we need it to consume content, we need it to connect to people, we need it to do online shopping. We need so much networks, and that you can call it 4G, 5G, it is essential. But the reality is this: we need to be connected. And some places like the US are moving very fast on 5G. Some other places are a little more, focusing on 4G deployment and being sure they can connect to all. So my question, if you allow me, Plamen, my question will be for all the panelists is, what does matter really? Do you really care about transmission speeds? We're essential to do what we're doing here. But also we need to think, as part of the SDGs discussions, to connecting the unconnected. And I think this is the other part where this whole discussion for me is essential. I'm born in Senegal. I am half Tunisian and half Italian. And I've seen so many places around the world where it is very complicated to be connected. But, thanks to wireless technology in the past years, the unimaginable is happening. And how can we ensure that this is continuing, that we are able to continue to connect, not only thinking to the 4G, 5G, 6G, or 7G, but really thinking to connecting people to this really essential, essential world that is the internet world, where people will be able to be on education, get better health, but also simply having a great glass of wine, even if it's virtual. So that's my question for everybody. And by the way, it doesn't have to be only wine. It can be tequila, it can be mezcal, it can be everything, or even water.
It sounds inclusive, so leave no one behind.
Let me say a few words. When I started my role as the Secretary General of ITU, I put the 4 I's on my priority. 4 I's are infrastructure, investment, innovation, inclusiveness, 4 I's. So I put the infrastructure the first, because apparently when you try to connect those not connected, you have to get the infrastructure there to connect them. But also you have to also use the new technologies to upgrade our services. So infrastructure cannot be just considered that they use the 2G to connect those people in the countryside, because we had the 2G, and we started with 2G, and we can use the 2G to there. And I think that we should try to bring them with the latest technologies, if possible. And of course, here you also need innovation. Our SMEs could help us to bring this powerful new technology to those people be connected. And therefore, again, investment, I think that is apparently, you need a huge investment. We have to create a good environment to attract investment. Again, I highlighted. Still, private investment is a major, investment for our market, so that we have to encourage them. We have to offer them good environment. And then inclusiveness to get everybody there. Now, we talked about the next 10 years. From now to 2030 is 10 years. Next 10 years, you count on 4G, I think it's not good. You already have 5G, why don't you use 5G? And you count on 6G, Karim just mentioned that this is a 6G, 7G, that is somewhere a little bit far away. 5G is absolutely critical for us, for our success everywhere. And for example, telemedicine, we talked a lot. And then, during this COVID-19, you had some kind of, surgery operations. Then, if you have this tele connection, and then you try to use the experienced doctor in the big city, to try to instruct the doctors in the remote areas to have a successful operation, then the time is very sensitive. If you lost a few seconds, maybe it's the life of the patient. So that 3G cannot offer this kind of advantage to us. And 4G is to some extent could have, but it's, I think that the 5G could satisfy that one. And with more and more requests from market after this COVID-19 6 months experiences, people will expect more from ICT. And then to meet this expectation, only 5G can do a good job, and the 4G is not enough. And then from now to 2030, for me, it's 5G. that it's the main technology and from ITU side, we also noted that from 3G, we approved technology standard in 2000 to 4G took us 12 years. It's 2012, we approved the 4G technology. Now from 4G to 5G took us 7 years. It's 2019, last year, we approved the spectrum for 5G. So it cannot jump immediately to 6G, and also a huge investment here already in the market. You cannot put it aside. So that everything together, I think that for me, it's quite safe to bet that for next 10 years, 5G is the only technology we could count on to support everything. So that one we have. I'm very pleased to know that everywhere people try to make efforts to develop 5G service technology. And today, first is Karim and this AT&T and these operators who try to deploy this kind of infrastructure. Then we need very good applications, very good services. And that one, Karim and the operator may not be able to do everything. So that SMEs everywhere could help us to develop local applications, advanced applications to bring the benefit of 5G to everything, to Internet of Things, that everything will be possible. So that for me, definitely it's a new dot. Next 10 years, 5G will be with us. And to achieve SDG by 2030, without the 5G, you cannot do that. So the 5G will be the basic requirement. And I think that recently I heard a lot that they talked about the 17 goals of SDG. They said we should have 18 goals, and the ICT should be one of the major goals. But it doesn't matter whether you have 18 goals or say 17 goals. But everybody recognizes that ICT is the base to support every goals. That why I was invited quite often this period. That is because everybody recognizes the importance of ICT. And I'm the face of ICT in other area. With you at this meeting, I'm not the face of ICT, and Karim could be better to present ICT. But anyhow, I think that we have to really to work together. Try to create a good environment to get the new technologies be deployed, and 5G is one of these major technologies, and also to extend our infrastructure to connect those not connected yet.
Thank you so
Otherwise,
much.
the SDG be achieved by 2030 is joke. I don't believe that will be achieved without a good development of ICT. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Algayerova.
Thank you. I agree with all Houlin's 5 points, but I give you example. You spoke about having a virtual wine together. What indeed we did during General Assembly, as we were not able to go to New York. So there was a private sector side event where the host sent in advance to each participant a bottle of wine. And then he was asking all of us, for me it was midnight, sitting in front of computer and just drink this wine together, and we exchange how the wine was tasting. On the other hand, I see during the COVID lockdown, our children received online education, right? But in the eastern part of our region, like Central Asia or Caucasus, it was not possible because one of those 5 was missing, either infrastructure or technology. Children were not able to be at home and have education online. So it's all fine. And also I heard somebody telling here, no one left behind. So this is the final goal of Agenda 2030. But at this occasion, I would like also to raise one very important question of regulation, privacy, trust, security, safety, and responsibility. Because I give you an example, we are working on transport, and of course, speaking about road, railway, or inland water transport, we speak here also about intelligent transport systems. So we are gathering together not only governments, but the private sector, civil society, academia. And we work, speaking about the driverless cars, autonomous cars. So who is taking the responsibility if something happens. So regulation is very, very important here. Speaking about security, safety, and responsibility, who is taking the guarantee? Is it the car producer, or is it insurance company, or is it the driver or the owner of the car? So these are the questions that we need to address if we want to advance with technologies for the future. Thank you. Back to you.
If I may, I also like to add another point, that the good example could be also important for us. I would like to take Colombia as a good example. Colombia, I noted that even a couple of years ago, I noted that Colombia put the ICT very high on their national agenda, and it's not for the ministry's agenda; it's a national agenda. And then, when I was there, that 2015, I noted that they even use the ICT for peace, for the country. So that is, I think that with such kind of good strategic views to put this highly on the agenda of national development, I think that there will be, easily for us to understand why that ICT in Colombia is not that, left, behind some very advanced states. And here, I think that those good examples, good lessons, it could be very good for the global family to share. So this one I would very much like to ask my friend from AT&T that you have a lot of services in many areas. That if you find some good example in a good model, that try to try to promote those successful stories so that we could all speed up our process of development. Sorry.
I think that it will be great to hear now Mr. Rodriguez, who's been mentioned by Mr. Zhao as an example, Colombia.
Yes, thank you. Really, that is true. ICT is part of the digital agenda, it's the presidential agenda. For that reason, we can be working every day in how we can improve connectivity, but also how we can improve digital transformation. I would like to mention a couple of things of the action that we are taking in Colombia, and basically is that now we can be working in how we can have 10,000 schools in rural areas with a Wi-Fi hotspots with a free connectivity for the communities that are based in that zone. We have been working in regulation, how we can innovate in regulation, and we have been using a sandbox not just for component related with connectivity in rural areas. We also use a sandbox for topics like fintech, health tech, artificial intelligence is the new concept that we are using in the sandbox. And we have now a single regulator for the ICT sector. We have been trying to put in practice every good global practice that we can check in the world. And basically, the ICT is a key point for the transformation in the country, in connectivity, in digital area, in talent, and this is part of our agenda day by day.
Thank you so much. Well, I wish this can go on and on, because having such a high-profile participants with impact is something that we stand for, and definitely our community very actively involves within this discussion. I would like to apologize to everyone whose questions wouldn't be asked here, because obviously time is a constraint that we still cannot overcome. But maybe one question, if you allow me, Karim, would be a question which I believe can wrap up the whole discussion in a nice way. Because at the end of the day, it's all about learning lessons. And the question comes from Germany. No, sorry, this one is David Rogers. I'm not sure where he from. What are the most important lessons learned from the COVID pandemic period in order to create a more resilient future? Maybe Göran to start with.
Oh, what an easy question.
I know, no pressure.
Actually, I want to, one of the lessons I think we learned is that the system worked. when the pandemic hit us and a lot of people went online, working from home, working from different places, the underlying system has been very stable. And I think, I mean, by the way, I have to say, because you talk about mobile all the time, there are all alternative technologies as well, like fiber. Coming from Sweden, I have to say that. But the point is that the reason I think that's important to remember is because you should only look at the things that didn't work rather than the things that actually did work, not sort of make mistakes. And we were not surprised, of course, that the underlying technology and all this actually worked so well. But it says something about it that you could take it from literally, you could add on so many people to this structure without it all breaking apart. So my answer would be that we have to continue to evolve the things we have and make sure that we don't do anything that rocks this system. And I think that one of the underlying parameters is, of course, the interoperability of the internet itself. You can go on any device, using any communication method, and you can hit the same system. Let's not ever forget that. And every time we make a decision that could sort of have an effect on that, let's really talk about that and think about it carefully, because you can actually disconnect people from the internet itself. The other thing I think is important is that the cooperation that has been happening around, and Karim called it the ecosystem or stakeholders, you want to do. I mean, there were challenges when everybody went online. We saw challenges in what we call abuse. We saw challenges when it comes to the security that was mentioned before. About the system itself. And what happened really was sort of innovative spirit where people around the world, organizations around the world, companies around the world formed new entities to sit down and work together against those things. And we're able to take a lot of those attacks and a lot of those things down together. And it's in a way, in a divided world, you might think that that will not happen, but in a way it was a large peace project. I was literally into meetings with sitting with people from hundreds of countries, representing all parts of governments and companies, and just trying to solve problems that we were faced with the pandemic. And I think that cooperation is going to be even more important. It's not about, the governments cannot fix anything. We have to work together with the multi-stakeholder models. We have to work on other decision models because sometimes we cannot wait for some of those decisions to be made. So the other thing is cooperation is going to be even more essentially important. It happened because of the interest of many people, and it was a very positive thing. That is my learning things.
Yeah, I agree with my friend Göran. It's absolutely important to have a very good cooperation and mobilize everybody work in the same direction. That will change the world. I also agree with my friend Göran that last mile connection is quite important. It's to some extent it's not that kind of focused. I noted that internet penetration and fixed broadband penetration is more or less similar the curve of development. And if we have better broadband connection to home, then I think that the internet penetration will be easily increased. So that these two curves more or less similar in parallel. So that one could also help us, and I definitely share his opinions. And of course, let me take this opportunity also to add a few words with my sister Olga, from UNECE. We had a very good cooperation with UNECE over the last 2 decades, and in particular in the artificial intelligence, intelligent transport systems, and UNECE. She correctly pointed out that it's not only for Europe. It's a Europe-based UN system to look at the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. That the SMEs is their focus, and we also try to work with them to strengthen this kind of study and some kind of joint efforts. So my friend, I think that my lessons, I would like to point to 2, if you allow me. One, as I mentioned already, that really, the government, public authority, they have to put this as a national strategy. Why I picked up Colombia, because about 10 years ago, I was there, I noted that it's already a national strategy, rather than the ministry's strategy. So that is most important. And then second one is linked with what Goran just said that the home gateway is quite important now. And with this kind of COVID-19, we use our home to be, connected with everybody. And I think that in many families, they only have smartphones or very even not smartphones. And that kind of things may not be enough. That in the future, system at home could be somehow targeted by investors, to do something to strengthen the functioning of ICT connectivity at home. So that is also one of my observation. I better to stop here. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zhao. Karim, actually, I would like to hear your answer here, but maybe really wrap up with our guests. And because we are totally over time, but we knew it's going to be over time with so many great guests in the studio. I would like to request the other two guests to jump into answering this question, please.
If I may.
Ladies first.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Göran and of course with Houlin about our fantastic cooperation, but 2 points were raised. One, how it worked fantastically with digital technologies during lockdown. Yes, absolutely. I cannot imagine we were without them in those times. However, it has also its limitations because the people-to-people contact cannot be substituted, There is this human aspect. Just yesterday, we had a forum of mayors here. Can you imagine how these people, these mayors coming from the region, and we organized for them also a very small soccer match, how they enjoyed being together and having opportunity to talk, And also we had some limitations. For instance, if you need 6 lingual interpretation of your meeting, so it's not yet very possible. However, it worked. We were happy to have it. It brought for us more working hours because we were sitting in front of screens from the morning till the night. But it was big help and it has a big future. And I already spoke about the need for a little bit caution about the privacy, security, safety, etc. Second, I fully agree with Göran on a lesson learned is partnership, cooperation, multi-stakeholder approach. Absolutely. Nobody can do it alone. No governments, no private sector. We need each other. We need to work together. One partner is never so strong as more partners coming together. So I hope for a bright future of digital technologies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, I would like to mention that we learned a lot of things in that time of the pandemic. Is basically, I would like to mention the importance of cooperation, the importance of privacy, the importance of open data, the importance of traceability, the most important ICT in terms of the connectivity, the penetration, and the quality of services, the importance that the innovation, because when you need to change the behavior, when you need to change the procedures that you have in 3 weeks, because you need to move 9.5 million students in a local class in schools to digital online services, or you need to move from 50,000 telehealth online consultation to 12 million online consultation. We need to innovate. You need to understand that it's possible to do the things in a different way. We did in 3 weeks, we gave 3 million of subsidies for people in rural areas using fintech, but never before we can do that, just only in the pandemic. That we learned that it's possible that the governments like us, we can move like a startup, that we have the possibility to work without bureaucracy, that we focus in the consumer, that in case it's the citizens, and using innovation, cooperation, and also the connectivity always is the most important component in digital transformation.
Thank you so much. I am personally very grateful for all of you being with us, and I'm addressing now my co-host and friend Karim. Karim, what beyond having the fastest internet a human living on this planet can afford at home, what beyond that you have learned? And AT&T has learned from this crisis, which is still ongoing, obviously, and lets us keep on learning.
Look, thanks, Plamen. I think really our speakers have really nailed down the key points, and I think one of the key points is really working all together. Is the success story is when public, private, community works all together in order to sort out the problems. And it's beautiful how people have been able to react to this crisis in a proactive way and to try to anticipate all the issues. So that's a great one. And if we have to look at the next step, and I think this is what Göran and all our other speakers were focusing on, is let's identify the vulnerabilities, working together, because we know that on a post-COVID, there will be a new normal. I don't think we will go back to where we were a year ago. We have discovered that we can do a lot of things in different ways, and we will have to adapt. So look, what I want to insist is this. Your leadership, Plamen, have helped us really to get here. And as I said at the beginning, if I think on where we were 6 months ago, where you were discussing with me about the organization of your physical event, where we were working on so many plans, and in less than 6 months, we have been able to do something totally different. So what I will say is this. This was a great conversation. This is the beginning of a lot of other conversation. I hope the community is going to join us. I hope our speakers are going to come back with us because there is so much to discuss. And I think issues around privacy, security, next step regulation, how to promote investments are core in this discussion, because we know we will need more. We know we will need new network. We know we will need new investments. And at the same time, we know we need a better regulatory framework in order to allow the whole ecosystem to work together. As I say all the time, an ecosystem is based on different species that are living in the same place. This is exactly like internet. Everybody is living in the same place, and we need to find a way to everybody to be able to respect each other, to have the ecosystem that grows, so we can include everybody. But thanks again, Plamen. This will never work without you.
Thank you so much, Karim, for all your generous words and such a wonderful wrap-up of the discussion we had with our fantastic speakers. I really want to say this one goes on and on, but everyone has so many things to do. Everyone comes from so many different places around the world. I do believe in that particular magic, the magic where all beautiful minds get together. And I'm very grateful for having Webit as one of the hubs, as one of the places where such high-level discussions are held. And hopefully we will see tactical, practical actions further. And I can't agree more that it's all about cybersecurity. It's all about the next important challenges that we all can solve, because they're challenging us as a humankind. Karim, thank you so much for joining us in this virtual studio. And obviously not possible to hug, right? It's a virtual one. But thank you so much for being such a wonderful co-host. And looking forward to our next special Webit Virtual edition. Special thanks to all of you speakers and the wonderful Webit community from all around the world. I still see 6,000 people. What I can promise you is that please keep on asking your questions, and we will find a way to answer them one way or another, and you will receive those answers. So thank you again for all of you, and wishing you a wonderful day, night, morning. Thank you.
Webit Virtual Special Event Series, co-hosted by AT&T.